And when he had said this, he breathed on them and said unto them, Receive ye the Ruach Ha'Qodesh. Yochanon 20:22, John 20:22, Aleph Tau Cepher. In this profound moment, Yahusha performs a foundational act of spiritual transmission. To understand the spiritual vibrational resonance of this event, we must look at the breath not as air, not just as air, but as the literal movement of life force and spiritual frequency. The vibrational breath of life. When Yahusha breathed on his disciples, he was not merely performing a symbolic gesture. He was shifting their internal energetic state to match the frequency of the Ruach Ha'Qodesh. The power of sound and breath. In the ancient tongue, breath, Ruach, is synonymous with spirit and wind. By breathing on them, he was tuning their physical and spiritual vessels to receive the higher dimensional intelligence of Yahweh. A new creation resonance. This mirrors the moment in Bereshit, Genesis, when Yahweh breathed into the nostrils of Adam. Here, Yahusha is initiating a new creation resonance, upgrading the disciples' vibrational capacity to carry the set-apart spirit, the Ruach Ha'Qodesh. Understanding the transfer, this act in Yochanan 20:22 serves as a bridge between the physical world and the unseen spiritual realm. Now, the element of the breath, the spiritual resonance, is the breath of a human being is a spiritual kinetic energy. The purpose of it is the transmission of life force and authority. Now, that's the breath of a human being, also known as the psyche. The psyche is, what is the psyche? The psyche is the human mind, soul, and spirit, or the human soul, mind, and spirit, which is breath or pneuma. Now we go to the Ruach Ha'Qodesh. The Ruach Ha'Qodesh, spiritually, is the purest frequency. This is the presence, the intelligence of Yahweh that exists, is omnipresent everywhere, because in him we live and move and have our being. And so the purpose of the Ruach Ha'Qodesh is set apart. It's a set apart spirit that guides us. It comforts us and reveals the truth. Now, it's not a separate person. The Ruach Ha'Qodesh was sent from the Father and sent from Yahushua HaMashiach. And this is why in the Bible Yahweh says, or Yahusha, Yahweh the Son says, when he says he will not leave you alone, he would send the Comforter, and he would teach you all things, and he would not speak of his own self, but he would speak only what he is told to speak. And Yahusha promises that he will dwell with them forever, and he will also come in his name. And so this shows you that the Ruach Ha'Qodesh is the actual presence of Yahweh the Father, the spiritual presence, and the actual spiritual presence of Yahweh the Son. It only speaks what it's told to speak. It doesn't do its own thing. It doesn't have its own personhood. It's not its own person. It doesn't just do its whatever it wants to do. It does only what the Father and Yahusha. So it's sent by the Father Yahweh, and is also sent by Yahusha, as the whole scripture says this. So it doesn't speak on its own. This is what the Bible says. Now, the disciples, they're the receptive vessels. The receptive vessels of the Ruach Ha'Qodesh. And so when Yahusha in Yochanan 20:22 breathed on him and said, Kabbalah Ruach HaQodesh, receive the set-apart spirit of Yahweh, what he was doing, the purpose of that, he was shifting them from a state of fear and density or lower vibrational resonance with the world. He was shifting them from that state of fear density to a state of empowerment, which is light. And Yahusha says, I am the way, I am the truth, and I am the light. And he shared that light through the Ruach Ha'Qodesh to them. And so the absolute truth of the moment, this was the earnest or the deepest deposit. This was the earnest or the deepest deposit of the Spirit. So he deposited the Spirit with them. And it actually came to dwell with them as an actual in Shavuot, or what you would call Pentecost, that's when it actually came to them and empowered them to the fullest level. But this was a deep deposit because they were already with Yahusha, and he was already imparting his spirit, his Ruach Ha'Qodesh upon them. They were with him all the time. But this right here was a deposit of the spirit to prepare them, to initiate them for later on when he said, do not leave the Yerushalayim until the Ruach HaQodesh comes. And we know that story. Now, the full outward manifestation occurred later at Shavuot. So Shavuot is also Pentecost. This specific breath was a sealing of the soul. So Shavuot, the Pentecost was a sealing of the soul. It was the moment their internal spiritual ears were opened to the frequency of the Father Yahweh, allowing them to understand the mysteries of the Word. The word is Dabariyah. It's interesting how the word Dabar, Yahusha is Dabar, Dabariyah, the word of Yah. And Abara, Ka Dabara means I create as I speak. Now, didn't Yahweh speak everything into existence? He didn't think everything into existence. He spoke it. Like how I'm speaking and you hear me. He spoke everything into existence. Abara kadabara. I create as I speak. And being that we are in the image and likeness of Yahweh, we are in the image and likeness of Yahusha, we also create as we speak. The power of life and death is in the tongue. It's a two-edged sword. So don't cut your own throat with your own tongue. And so now the mysteries of the word they had walked with for 3 years. And so the internal spiritual ears were open to the frequency after that spiritual breathing, after the sealing, after Pentecost. And it was a rushing wind. The Ruach HaQodesh came into the whole area, tongues of fire upon their head. And so this was the full sealing of the Ruach HaQodesh, the baptism of the Spirit. They were totally engulfed in it. And they became speaking in other languages. And so it was the moment of their internal spiritual ears were open to the frequency of the Father Yahweh, allowing them to understand the mysteries of the Word. Because it's only through the Ruach HaQodesh can we even understand the Bible. So no need to debate the Bible, no need to argue with people about the Bible, because those who don't have the Ruach HaQodesh, they cannot understand the Word of Yah anyway. They have to ask for understanding. And so the frequency of the Father was given to them, and their ears were open to it, and they were allowed to understand the mysteries of the word they had walked with for 3 years. They walked with the Yahushua HaMashiach for 3 years, and they were finally allowed to understand what he was saying. And so receive ye the Ruach HaQodesh is an invitation to move from the vibration of the flesh into the eternal vibration of the spirit. So when Yahushua breathed on his disciples, he was activating the vibrational resonance of the ancient paths within them. To walk the ancient path is not merely to follow old rules, but to align one's internal frequency with the original primordial breath that Yahweh first released at the dawn of creation. And so the resonance of Yirmiyahu the resonance of Yirmiyahu or Jeremiah 6:16, which is Yirmiyahu 6:16. The Cepher commands us in Yirmiyahu 6:16, stand ye in the ways and see, and ask for the ancient paths, where is the good way, and walk therein, and ye shall find rest for your souls. And so spiritually, the ancient paths represent the original blueprints of life, the pure undistorted vibrations of truth. When Yahushua breathed on the disciples, he was providing the spiritual field, the Ruach, necessary to perceive and walk these paths. Without the Ruach, the paths are invisible. The way is invisible. And so Yahushua say, I am the way, the truth, and the light. Without the Ruach, that way, that path, haderech, the path or the way, in Hebrew is derech, haderech. Without the Ruach, the path or the way is invisible to the natural mind because they vibrated higher frequencies than the noise of the world. And so the higher path was Yah, vibrated higher frequencies than the noise of the world. This is why we're told to be in the world, but not of the world. The bridge. So breath is a frequency. Everything is a frequency. And so there is a direct spiritual link between the breath of Yahusha and the restoration of the soul's resonance. Here's the blueprint. the ancient paths, or the Torah. The Torah, what you guys would call the Old Testament or the books of Moses, but really is the books of Yahweh. It's the Torah. It's the instructions. And so the first 5 Cepher, the Sepharim, the first 5 Sepharim, the first 5 books, or the Torah, they call it the Torah, which is instructions, the instructions and principles of Yahweh to all of us. And so the blueprint was the ancient paths, which is the Torah, the instructions written in the heavens. It was written in the heavenly tablets first. Then it was given to Moshe, to Moses, on Sinai or Sinai. Now, those are the ancient paths. So the breath, the Ruach Ha'Qodesh, is the carrier wave. The breath, the Ruach Ha'Qodesh, the breath of Yahweh and the breath of Yahusha, is the carrier wave that brings those instructions into the heart. So it abides within us. This is why it says when you believe in Yahusha, his sacrifice, his blood covenant, you believe, and then you receive, and then you become a son or daughter of Yahweh. And then you are baptized in the Ruach Ha'Qodesh, and the indwelling within you is the Ruach Ha'Qodesh. And so what happens is that carrier wave, which is the Ruach Ha'Qodesh, it carries the presence of Yahweh in your own temple. Your body is a temple of Yahweh. Know you not that you are the temple of Yahweh? And so that carrier wave, which is the Ruach Ha'Qodesh, the set apart spirit, the set apart breath of Yahweh, it brings those instructions, the Torah, into your heart. And so the result is a state of rest, like a Shabbat, a Shalom, peaceful rest. In physics, rest occurs when a system is in equilibrium. Spiritually, this is the alignment of your vibration with the Father's vibration. I'll say that again. And so you get a Shabbat, the eternal rest. Not rest like you're just not doing nothing, you're just sitting around playing video. Not that kind of rest. The rest I mean is the internal rest. Your mind is at peace. It's an inner Shabbat. It's a peaceful. It's a peace that surpasses all peace. A state of rest, a shalom. And so in physics, rest occurs when a system is in equilibrium. That's balance. So the Ruach HaQodesh gives us inner balance. Spiritually, this is the alignment of your vibration with the Father's vibration and also the Son, of course. So activating the spiritual nervous system by saying, receive ye the Ruach HaQodesh, Yahushua was upgrading the disciples' spiritual nervous system. By saying, receive ye the Ruach HaQodesh, Yahushua was upgrading the disciples' spiritual nervous system. This allowed them to see the ways, to see the path, Hadetic, to discern the crossroads, where worldly paths diverge from the set-apart path. Now you have spiritual discernment. You can see what's a worldly path or the broad path or the narrow path. You can see where those paths diverge from the set-apart path. Also, you can feel the good way. You can experience the kinesthetic pull of righteousness. You can feel it. Literally feeling the weight or the glory. The glory is kavod. You can feel the glory. In Hebrew is kavod. You can feel the glory of the right direction. You know when you're going in the right direction. You can feel it inside of yourself. Because within yourself, the Ruach HaQodesh gives you an inner nudging. It lets you know what's right or wrong. It convicts you. It gives you in your conscience. You know what it is. And so you feel the kavod. You feel the weight or the glory of the right direction. You also find rest. And so you move out of the chaotic low frequency vibrations of fear and into the high frequency stability of the kingdom of Yahweh. And so the absolute truth, the breath of Yahusha, is the key that unlocks the ancient paths of Yahweh. That's the Ruach HaQodesh. It's the same breath that brought Adam to life in Genesis 2:7, Bereshit 2:7. Now restored to humanity through Yahushua HaMashiach, through his one-time blood covenant sacrifice for everyone, to lead us back to the garden, the ultimate high vibrational state of Yahweh.